every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you hooked. I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you hooked.
A quick introduction for describing my side. My face is forgettable, a regular guy. Now I can be anyone, anywhere I aim. I just need the mindset, a story and a name. Just started working here, haven't got my badge yet. My hard hat and clipboard's the same as all access. Data center rooftop, finished with my case soon. Taking people's lunches from the bags up in the break room. Talking through my story, recited it with confidence. Make you feel at ease, disregard your common sense. Now I'm in, hope you're ready for the consequence. Cause I'm picking locks, slipping off with all your documents. Play the subconsciousness, never regress. Got the technique set, cashing every e-check. Set them up, knock them down, premise with my pretext.
Social Engineer Podcast, number 17.
Number 17.
Hey, that was a good relic fill-in. Thank you, Jim. If you notice, our panel's a little bit small today. Dave, which is notorious for calling in from some very odd places, actually is at the doctor's with his kids in a blizzard. So we actually don't know if he's going to be calling in, and if he does, we're sure it will be some kind of adventure. And Mutz is in transit. So you are left with Jim and me this month. How's it going, Jim? Yeah. So how are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Really? Wonderful. That's like better than normal.
No, I'm just lying.
Yeah. Nice. That's great. That's great. So let's see. What do we got going on this month? There's a whole mess of stuff happening, of course. I'd like to talk a little bit, as we normally do in our introductions, about the intro music. If you liked it, you can check out Dual Core at dualcoremusic.com. Those two guys in the Dual Core band are just phenomenal. And I was just talking to Int80 about their schedule for this year, and I guess he's got like shows coming out his ears planned already. So in addition to working, he's just going to be traveling all over playing shows with him and his buddy. So sounds like they're going to have a busy year, but we're going to try to get him on the show at some point just to talk about that intro music and some other things. But if you like that, the music on the intro and the outro, just check it out on dualcoremusic.com. Hey, Mutz isn't here this month, so we can actually talk about OffSec all we want, and he can't stop us. Isn't that great?
Yeah, he gets all embarrassed.
He does, doesn't he? It's kind of funny.
Yeah, he's so humble.
Yeah, I know. It is the truth. It is definitely the truth. So we can actually talk a little bit about our live training. OffSec is coming out with another course in April of 2011. Our pen testing with Backtrack course is going to be in Columbia, Maryland. That thing is like filling up already, which is kind of amazing to me because it's really early. So I guess if anyone's interested in that, they should be checking out the page or emailing, kind of getting in line with that. And we have a lot of people calling about awe. I mean, I tell Ryu about this, Matteo, and he gets really excited because he just loves the thought of being able to torture more students. Yeah. And I know you're looking forward to that too. So what we got to do is just kind of pick a date and start planning it out.
Let's do it.
Yeah, really, we need
Unleash
to.
the pain. Yeah. No, it's a good time. It'll be good because you need an extra day of pain added onto it. How can you go wrong with that?
Unleash the pain. I think that it could be like a new slogan for the awe class. I had this great idea, which I tell you, we got to talk Mutz and they'll let me do it. Is for one awe class is to like roll Matteo chained up inside of a box, like the cartoon, like the Tasmanian Devil box, and have like danger on it and chains on it and everything, and he's inside like trying to scratch his way out of the edge, screaming and hollowing. And then, I run out of the room and he busts through the box and, like, here's your instructor for the day. I think it would just make a great effect on the all class.
What's great about the way he does that class, too, is, with his accent. He's very understandable, but he has that accent, and he just sounds so calm all the time. And when students are there and they'll ask him, some question, you can tell the student is they're on to something, and they're close, but they're asking a little bit of advice, and what he throws out is he just says, sure, and walks away. And, hey, Rayu, can I do this and this and this? Is that going to work? Sure. And then he walks away. just the look on their face afterwards is always beautiful.
Very disconcerting, huh?
Well, because then they have to go and try. You know, they're not getting easy out. They got to go and try and do it. And maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but either way, they got to give it a shot.
Yeah, in PWB, we have a statement that there is no spoon. I think in all, it's like you guys ground the spoon up and then force feed it to them.
You know, gotta get their money's worth.
That's great. Oh, man. So, we'll be talking about that more as we get dates set for that and a CTP class I'm hoping for. I know last month I was teasing people with some top secret information about our CTP class, but hopefully in the next month or so we'll have some more information that I can release that will be really, really good about that. You know what else is going off pretty well is our SE poll. I mean, we did one for the first time last month, or the month previous, and I was surprised to have hundreds of people logging in and actually taking part in the poll. And we did another one this month, and I don't have everything compiled yet, so we'll have that up on the page probably by the time that this podcast goes out. That way we can start our next poll. But, again, more people logging in to check out this poll. And the poll this month was if social engineering is the most serious security threat to corporations, yes or no. And if you answer no, then tell us what you think the most serious security threat is. And tell you the truth, just looking at it, it looks like the yeses are winning, of course, but some interesting feedback on the no's. You know, we have some people who on the no's are saying things like the greatest threat is the employees, not necessarily social engineering, but the employees themselves. Or I'm trying to just look through to see if there's any really interesting ones, because there was a couple I saw before.
How many people put down Godzilla?
None. I saw none that said Godzilla. That was, you know what? Here is one that you'll really like. None or no, and the greatest threat is zombie attacks.
Well, you know, I can see that.
That's what they felt was the greatest threat was zombie attacks.
No,
but
just wait now, because Dave's gonna totally work that into the next version of Set.
Set zombie attack. That's great.
Yep.
That's great. We had one guy who answered Aliens and another guy who answered Inception. So I think those who answered on the nose definitely just proved that probably their answer was yes, but they wanted to be funny. Although the best no answer to date was this one. Another Russian revolution is the greater threat to corporations, although it's highly unlikely. So that would make social engineering the most serious viable threat to corporations. Thought that was quite a complete answer. So we'll compile that, get that data out there, you know, as we release that for next month. Let's see, what else do we have going on? The newsletter came out this month. Really hit off. I mean, I was surprised after last month how many more new sign-ups we had. A lot of people signed up after last month. It was really good.
The mailbox.
Yeah, we are. We're getting full in the registrations. People are really enjoying it. We're getting a lot of positive feedback on it. A lot of people writing on Twitter after they read it, and it sparked a lot of great conversations in our IRC channel. I'll tell you, that to me is probably one of the biggest benefits, because I know sometimes guys come in the channel, they want to have like an SE conversation or a conversation about something related to it, and it's hard to just pick out topics out of the air. The newsletter has been giving people some nice topics to come into the channel and be able to talk about. So that's going to be kind of cool to continue that revolution as we go through and pick out more good topics for the newsletter. Let's see. What else do we got going on? I mean, it seems like there's tons, but there's not a lot that I just said.
Well, you know, I heard someone came out with a book.
Really? Who? Did you write a book, Jim?
You know, me read? No, never.
Oh, you guys are killing me, I tell you. Killing me. Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody about your great idea about this month's podcast, since it was really your idea that has to tie in with what you just said.
What do you mean? Oh, this is the part where I'm supposed to take credit because you wanted to do this?
You know, oh, man, I tell you, I'm going to have to edit that out, aren't I?
No, you got to leave it in.
I got to leave it in. Yeah, I'm going to leave that in.
Me taking,
oh, you're killing me.
They'll be planning for everybody.
Killing me.
No,
okay.
The basic idea was, you know, so this book came out, and there's a lot of people that have been talking about it lately. You know, a lot of conversation on Twitter. You see a lot of that. People getting their. It came out just in time for Christmas, so that's really good. You know, we're obviously talking about Chris's social engineering book that came out published through Wiley. So, you know, nice mainstream publisher there. Not some sort of cut rate little joint, but you know. Tarnishing a long standing brand there, Chris. So it should be pretty good. But yeah, it came out right before Christmas, and a lot of people used their little break to read up on through the book a little bit, and there's a lot of discussion on Twitter, a lot of people bringing up various different points, and I thought it might be a good idea to talk about the book a little bit. You know, I don't think it's necessarily self-serving simply because it's out there and it's a big conversation point, and it's really an expansive topic. So what we wanted to do was bring in some various people from the audience, I guess, really is the best way of putting it. People that had read the book, made some commentary about it, bringing them on to the podcast and seeing what they honestly thought about it, you know, what was good, what was bad, you know, what thoughts they had while they were reading through it, what they learned, and where they think they might be going in their social engineering endeavors going forward with what they've picked up from the book. So, does that about cover it?
Yeah, I mean, like, all joking aside, it really, at first when you told me, I kind of didn't really like the idea because I thought it's going to seem so, you know, arrogant or something, you know, to talk about, like, our podcast that, you know, I'm on to talk about my book. But after, like, asking a few people, there was a lot of interest out there. I was surprised how many people were reading the book and would love to have conversations and delve deeper into topics. So, and your idea about picking out different ones was really good because, like, we have, you know, when we invite the guests on, we're going to have a guy who's a professor at a university. And we're going to have someone who's kind of new in their career, just exiting college and studying some security certifications. We have one of the girls that took part in the CTF last year at DEF CON. We have another woman who's runs like nonprofit organizations and does all sorts of great stuff in the security community. Then we have, you know, it seems like the more we look, the more great things we have as far as these guests coming on. Being diverse, very diverse in where they're at.
Good cross-section.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a nice cross-section to kind of get their opinions on the book, what they felt was good, questions they have, and see what they liked about it. Because I think, for me especially, it'll be interesting to see if there's a difference in the gender and or age groups and what they like or dislike about the book or what they found to be really interesting about it. And depending on that, that'd be kind of cool.
Related to that too, and this has always been the thing with ever since we started this whole endeavor is, you know, constructive criticism is very constructive. You know, it's you know, we're not shy with tearing up each other's work, and we've always appreciated the feedback that we've received from the community, and so this is a way of helping improve the product, helping to make things better, peer review. You know, what's really out there and how do we make it better? It's not just you know, bringing people on and saying, hey, how is this good? You know, tell me what a good guy I am. It's a matter of, you know, let's take this product, and everything has room for improvement, and we can find ways of getting that outside perspective and bringing it up. So not just in this book, but you know, in the podcast, in the newsletter, on the website, everything. You know, we're always open to feedback from anybody, and we welcome it. That's what helps keep this fresh. We're a little over a year into this now, and I think that we haven't really had anyone saying that we're plowing the same field over and over again. So that's good, and it's because of the feedback. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think the feedback in our podcast is kind of what kept us fresh and ready to. I mean, I know the first few we did, we were curious. You know, like if are we on the right path? Are we even are people interested in what we have to say? And getting feedback from people was essential for me, at least, to know, okay, we're doing okay, we're on the right path, people are finding it good, because we're so different, I think, from a lot of podcasts that I was wondering if it would be extremely interesting to people, or if we were kind of just doing something that the four of us liked and that was it,
Well, and,
so
that's enough. That's enough.
That's enough, yes. Well, I think we're up to 5 listeners now.
That's hey, we gotta love friends and family.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I got my kid downloading it like 3 times, so.
There you go. But see, this is worth mentioning since Dave isn't on the line. He's made some really nice improvements to SET since the last podcast. It seems like we're always saying that, but he added in some attacks that I really like on there, relating to capturing different password hashes and then being able to turn around and reuse them. And the wonderful thing about them is they can be used in conjunction with other attacks. So it's not an either-or situation. You can try to get someone to, come to your phishing site, open your document that you sent, that sort of thing, and it will send the network connection and attempt a authorization to the server that you're running and capture that hash that is delivered if the client actually is supporting that. And you might be able to instantly just capture that and then turn around and reuse it. And so that...
SET has turned into a monster.
Yeah, and it's still manageable, though. You can still get through the interface. You can still select the attacks, the automation stuff that he put in there. I know we haven't talked too much about that, but then that's been really helpful as well, simply because I know, for instance, in my situations, when I've used the product in real-world attacks, I'll find that I'll use very similar attacks over and over again, and just being able to edit the config file and then relaunch saves me a lot of time.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I'm with you. I do really like some of the new additions to SET. Dave has done a phenomenal job really getting the updates out there pretty quick. I'm just wondering at what point we're going to have to, where it will just kind of take a break, where SET has become like its own entity, really. It's amazing what it started as and what it's turned into. Those new password hash attacks are pretty cool. I think he's also worked on some of the new Metasploit stuff that's being worked into Metasploit, but now is in SET also. Some of those attacks that are now being implemented as standard parts of MSF, which is pretty cool too.
As far as that matter goes, too, the Metasploit Pro product that came out has some decent phishing attacks built into it as well, which is kind of nice. I haven't played around with those nearly as much as what I've used SET, but I've seen some people saying some nice things about it. So anyone that's incorporating that sort of thing in their assessment methodology, it's definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah, what's really cool is we just got some licenses to put Metasploit Pro in the OffSec labs.
Oh, I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So it's really sweet. So if you get on the course now and you're in the labs, you actually could play with Metasploit Pro, find out if you like it, use it in the real lab environment, see how it works, and then make a decision if you want to move forward with buying it. But really a slick product, I'm telling you. Just from what I saw already, I'm in love with it, really.
Well, I don't want to sound like a... Exactly. I don't want to sound like a Metasploit commercial at all, but I've used the framework for a long time, and I'm a big fan of the open source product. But once Express came out, I was lucky enough to secure a copy through my employer, and it's a big time saver. It's not going to do the pen test for you. It's not going to do anything like that, but it's wonderful on automating a lot of stuff that you'd have to do by hand previously. And what I found really interesting is, as the product has been out there, a lot of people that were naysayers about it originally have then turned around and started saying, I got a chance to use it. It's not what I thought it was going to be. It's really nice. It's definitely worth checking out. I still use the open source framework, all the time, every day. But it's been also really nice to see a lot of the items, the different improvements that originally started out in the commercial product then trickle themselves down into the open source one. So that's been a big thing too, that they haven't ignored their original product. There's been too many products that have gone from open source to commercial, and it's really ruined them. So it's nice to see that not occurring in this case.
I agree with Metasploit. It's amazing how you can just wait a couple days, and then if you do an MSF update, the amount of stuff that comes through that's been updated, you can tell that they're really working hard and they're not ignoring the free end of the product, the open source end of the product. And that is exciting to see.
If they haven't looked at it, the database support within the open source product is really worth spending some time in, because that really helps on a lot of reporting after the work is done. Yeah,
that's cool. I'm telling you, it really is. I got a chance to see it. I was down in Texas. I did a speech, social engineering speech at Bank of America, and H.D. Moore was there, and he was just launching it, and he had it on his iPad, and he was showing me Metasploit Pro, and I was like, oh man, this is really slick. And then a few weeks later, again, we had it, the licenses we were putting in the labs, and really a nice product. I mean, it kind of, the way it works over the network and even over the web, very smooth, very easy to understand. You know, you don't need like a degree in engineering to figure it out. It's a really, really good product. They really did a good job with that, in my opinion, at least. It's really nice.
Yep. But not to be a commercial for them, but definitely.
Yeah, we just turned into a commercial for free commercials for Metasploit.
Hey, I mean, whenever you come across a good product, you want to see people use it. You want to see it be successful. So. Yeah,
I'm with you, and I do agree with what you said. At least as far as many products, sometimes when they go from open source to commercial, they tend to ignore the open source portion, and it doesn't seem like HD has done that. You still see a lot of hard work being put into the open source end of the spectrum, and that's really encouraging in my book to see that happen. Stuck true to his promise, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he's extremely responsive. I don't know how the guy does it. Between IRC and Twitter, you see that guy responding to any random question from any random person within 5 minutes. It's amazing how he does it. There must be like 3 of them.
Oh, yeah, I heard a rumor that he cloned himself.
As long as it's not like that old that dumb movie with what's his name that played Batman, where they start cloning the clones.
That's funny. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, HD has cloned himself. Either that, or maybe he wrote a Metasploit script that is like an HD script.
It's a module. Yeah, it's plug-in.
It's a module. It's the HD module in Metasploit. Like when you boot it up and it just automatically answers twits and emails and stuff like that. Twits? Is that even right, or is it tweets?
I think people tweet. I think twits tweet.
Twits tweet?
Yeah, I think that's how it is.
Is it twit or is it tweet? I don't know. I can't figure it out. So we'll probably get the guests on now, but as always, Dave logs in from some crazy place. Dave?
Yep.
Are you still living?
I am. I'm fighting the snow apocalypse in Ohio right now.
Snow apocalypse. That's great.
It's interesting. It all hit all at once, but taking all my kids to the doctors and everything. We're all on antibiotics right now, so.
And weren't you just talking on Twitter about how you have the...
Yeah. Karma sucks.
Karma.
Yeah. I was bragging on Twitter how I haven't gotten sick in a year, and my entire family was sick, and I'm sitting there laughing at them, and I was helping out, obviously, but laughing at them, and then the next day I got the sore throat, and everything else starts to come after it, so.
Oh, man, he'll get you.
Yeah.
Well, it serves you right. But anyhow, it's good timing.
It wasn't throwing up everywhere.
It's good timing you came in, because there was one big, huge, fat thing before we start the actual podcast that we need to talk about.
Your head.
You do have a pretty big head, buddy.
Not my head, your head.
Oh, my head. I have a smaller head than you.
I don't think so. That's
Jim, you be the judge. Who's got a bigger head?
This is PG, right?
Oh, Jim, that too, Jimmy. Anyhow, DerbyCon, not our heads, DerbyCon. Derby stinking con. What is going on with this? Like, that video came out, and everybody on Earth is excited about DerbyCon. So give us a scoop, man.
Well, me, Pure Hate, Martin Voss, and Adrian Crenshaw, Iron Geek, we're all sitting down at Pure Love. Sorry. Well, no, so we're all sitting down. It was about a year ago, and talking about making an awesome hacker conference in Louisville, because there's nothing that's ever been there. And so we started kind of putting together some ideas and everything, and we started reminiscing about, like, I remember going to DEF CON in like 2000, where it was just, Alexis Park and small, and everybody was just there having a good time, and everybody knew each other, and it was just kind of open. And we kind of started working on building a conference, and it just went crazy. I mean, we have everybody lined up. I mean, that we requested. I mean, we got Ed Scotus, H.D. Moore, Egypt, Chris Gates. I mean, just tons of really talented people in the security industry. You got Jim and you, obviously. I mean, I thought you were just going to introduce yourself as I was saying people, but
no, I was going to say Jim. I mean, come on, you got Jim. Is he giving like
Jim? We got. I mean, we have pretty much the entire Metasploit team. We got Corlan Coder, who's really awesome at the exploit development stuff, and Null Threat, and just all those guys are coming to speak at DerbyCon, and we got a huge lineup. We got a couple more surprises coming, but I mean, it's really blown up. I mean, our site's getting pounded daily with just people logging in, checking out the video, commenting on it. We've had a lot of great feedback, and it's going to be big. I mean, we rented the whole second floor of the Hyatt in Louisville, and it's right in downtown, the heart of the party area there. So you walk right out of the Hyatt, and you're at all the clubs and restaurants and all that good stuff. It's just a perfect place.
So the big question is when?
When? It's going to be September 30th to October 2nd. It starts at 9 a.m. till well, it's kind of cool. I'll release some details here. It starts at 9 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Friday and Saturday, and then at night, and we have B-Sides Kentucky going on, and then at the same time, from 5:30 to 10:30, we're going to do training. So we're going to pack in as much as you possibly can in one conference. And, we're going to have, I can't talk about the trainers yet, but we have some awesome trainers lined up, classroom-type stuff. So regardless if you want to do training or if you want to do B-Sides Kentucky, I mean, you're basically covered the entire time for the HackerCon. That
is great, man. That is great. I'm sure it's going to take off. It's going to be real exciting. The line of speakers you got going on is just really exciting. It's going to be like you said, like the old school kind of HackerCon coming back.
It's great. Yeah, and I got to thank everybody that from the community that's going to speak, and people that are just pouring in to say, hey, if you need any help with this or any help with this, and Nick Hitchcock, Nick HCH, he's going to be head of security, so we'll make sure that you get thrown out like 4 or 5 times. And
awesome, awesome. That's great because I know Nick since he was like a little kid, so I'll actually have him throw you out. That'd be great.
Oh, don't worry, we're going to skydog there. We'll have him throw you out.
Skydog. I'll just tell him that Zero Chaos needs to visit him again. Let's not talk about that, okay?
Yeah, I'm not going to
I'm still traumatized. I'm still traumatized. PG. That is definitely not PG.
That is not PG.
Anyhow, we have with us a panel of experts. I don't know what they're experts at, but they're experts here with us today. We have, awesome. Let's see, being experts at being awesome. Wow, that's great, Jim.
Yeah.
That's great. That was really professional. Anyhow, let me see if I can get this right, these bios, okay, because I'm going to mess it up. We got Ron Warner with us. Ron, how are you doing today?
Outstanding.
You sound like Jim. Maybe everyone in Nebraska is always doing awesome.
It's the attitude of the Midwest, what can I say?
It's the Midwest attitude.
Yes.
So, Ron,
I'm not always doing well.
Yeah, but you're doing well. They're doing outstanding or awesome, so there's a big difference in well and awesome.
I know, but I'm saying I'm in the Midwest, so it doesn't apply to everybody.
So, Ron, you're a professor at a university, right?
Yes, Bellevue University.
Excellent. And you have, from reading your bio, you got over 20 years in IT and security experience out in the Midwest. So you're going to have a lot of different viewpoints on what's going on in the security industry and things like that. So that's kind of interesting for us to take a look at someone in your shoes. Next, we have Morgan. Morgan was with us out at DEF CON last year. How you doing, Morgan?
Doing good. How are you, Chris?
Oh, great. Doing awesome, actually. See, I'm from the Midwest, too. No, I'm not, actually, at all.
No, you have to say outstanding.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I didn't say outstanding. I'm just doing awesome. That's what we're doing in the East Coast.
You're doing wicked good.
Wicked good. We're not from Boston. Come on. Yeah, Alice and I are taking offense to that, seriously. Morgan was in the DEF CON CTF and graduated, or is still in college, or you graduated yet?
No, I graduated.
You graduated, okay. Your focus was cybersecurity and forensics, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so you got a good mention there, too, on that. We look forward to your input on what's going on in the security industry. And you presently work in the cybersecurity industry, too, don't you?
Yeah, I just started a new position, actually, so
well,
I'm not too heavy into it, but I'll contribute as much as I can. That's
cool. Next is John, or Bots, as we all know him as. John, we're really looking forward to your opinion, too, because John is actually probably the youngest guy here on the podcast right now. I'm not going to release all your personal details. You can do that if you want. But John, starting out in the security industry, been studying for years on his own, kind of taking courses, preparing for certain exams and certs and things like that, but always been interested in security, information security, and social engineering, NLP, things like that. So we look forward to talking to you too, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you're doing great because you're like in the sunniest place on the planet.
Oh, it's great today. It's perfect weather.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, man, I miss it.
We're like in the center of hell, and he's like in paradise. It's not right, really. And then, I mean, I keep wanting to say Snipes, but Allison, how are you doing, Allison?
I'm spectacular.
I need an hour to go through Allison's bio. So let me just pick out the interesting things. She fights people with swords. Really?
Hey. Wow. A guy at my work does that. He goes up every Friday to go beat people with swords.
That is crazy. Like, I just want to see that in action. That she fights people with swords. That's just cool.
Like, I mean, they make like chainmail and everything. I mean, those guys. You guys don't mess around.
That's nuts. So do you wear chainmail and actually beat people with swords?
I used to wear chainmail. I've since retired it.
Now she just does it like with no chainmail.
Hardcore.
Yes, completely naked, actually.
Okay.
PG! No.
PG!
Besides sword fighting, I noticed on your page, and this struck an interest in me, you had ENTP. So you took the Myers-Briggs personality indicator, didn't you?
I did.
I'm an ENFP, just for your information. So
Nice.
We'll let everyone else worry about what those two things mean. We'll talk about that another time. A crime fighter.
Feelings?
Yes. No, I'm not going to talk about my feelings here.
Okay.
So a crime fighter. So do you actually have like a superhero outfit?
I would love a superhero outfit, but no,
really
unfortunately,
cool.
most of my crime fighting is done behind the computer.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the things that you said to me that really interested me is you did some work running some undercover stuff that helped ending the dogfighting ring. That's the whole thing with Michael Vick.
Yep.
So you were integral in helping nail that down and stop those dogfighting rings?
Yeah, basically what was happening was the local prosecutor was not doing a spectacular job of prosecuting the case. I think he was a part-time DA and really didn't have the resources and wouldn't accept any help. And so we decided to bump it to a federal level. And since it was crossing state lines, we could do that. But we were having a hard time tracking down some of the legwork. Just wasn't getting done. And I had a few personalities that were embedded on some of the underground dogfighting communities. And so I did some digging. And there you have it. Forwarded on to the federal prosecutor's office.
That's phenomenal. Well, I mean, congratulations on that. That's kind of a cool thing to see you help
awesome.
end.
Thank you.
Cruelty to animals is definitely not a joking matter, so it's kind of cool. You can add that to your list of bio things to say that you helped end that.
My ridiculously long list. Actually, that's
hey, you know what?
Normally make my bio because
Jim and I were talking about this, and what we really like about having all of you guys on here and gals was that the diversity in between the guests. I mean, you know, from what we just talked about with you all the way up to the professors to people just starting out in the industry, it's going to be a really nice panel. Our goal today was, I don't even want to talk about it. Jim, can you describe it again and tell what our goal is? Because I feel like I'm like self-promoting when I do this. So,
well, we're going to talk about it's an intervention for Chris. And
yep.
I hate you so much,
Chris. We didn't want to tell you until we got on the phone, buddy. But we've all come together. We're here for you.
That's great.
We're here for you.
That's great. That's just great.
No, what we're talking about is the social engineering book has come out, and we're interested in getting some feedback from people across the spectrum of the industry to get some ideas as far as like what they liked, what they didn't like, what they thought could be improved, what they felt they learned, and where they think they're going to go next with social engineering in general, and just kind of have a chat about the topic.
And any questions that you have on the book or anything really. We're open to it. I'm open to it.
I'm serious. I thought we were here for an intervention.
Really hate you.
Let's start at the beginning, Chris. As far as how did this book even come about? What was the process that made this happen?
Well, that is an interesting question, actually. It started with the framework. I mean, it was only about a year and a half ago when I wanted to write a course on social engineering. So when Mutz and I sat down and we started looking over the information that was available to us, open source on the web, and things that we can start pulling together, really it was kind of saddening. I mean, a lot of the information that was out there was like how to get free pizza, free burgers at McDonald's, not stuff that I really would classify as social engineering. And although there was like a really complete pen tester's framework out there, there was nothing for social engineering. So we started putting it together, and it really became a community effort. I mean, Jim, you jumped on board shortly after Dave started making SET, which became a beast of its own, and the framework just kind of took off. So jump ahead about a year or so later, framework is kind of getting popular, and Wiley showed some interest in turning the framework into a book. So got contacted by the same publisher who did all of Mitnick's books through Wiley. The Art of Deception book, at least through Wiley, and wanted to write like another level of social engineering book. I guess, kind of looking at it, there's not many out there that are how-to, how to study social engineering, how to become a social engineer. So that really was the kind of the thesis for the book, was writing about using the framework and all the steps in it and how to become a social engineer.
I got a question. Where'd you get all your information? There's like a lot of stuff in this. Did you just make it up, or did you find it on the internet through Google, or where did it all come from?
It's like 360 pages of BS. No, just kidding. It really, a lot of it is research that I did over years of time. A lot of the research that I cite are papers that I've collected and studied and read myself. And then a large majority portion of it is personal experience. So things that I've just done in my life, and then later on analyzed some of the stories I wrote about, but I didn't even realize what was happening until way later in life, that I sat back and said, wow, how the heck did that work out? And then analyzing what it was that caused those things to occur, and then now being in the security field for years, sitting back and saying, man, I can use those same skills in social engineering. I don't know if that's a
great answer.
Absolutely, yeah. Where was your motivation at for writing the tools chapter, and specifically page 283?
Are those even legal?
Yeah, I figured Dave just asked that question, so it was about SET. Nice. Talk about self-promotion, you jerk. As a matter of fact, that was the one page, that was the one chapter we were going to take out, that whole section. But, no, I'm just kidding. The tools section, if you really want to know, I honestly felt that a book about social engineering that did not go through some of the actual hardware and software tools available was not complete. So things like cameras and GPSs and SET and Maltego, you have to talk about those things if you really want to sit back and talk about what being a social engineer is all about. And funny story, Dave, just so you know, I had submitted that chapter. It was done. It was complete. It was already edited. You can ask Jim because he's a technical editor. and then you send me the updated 50 pages of the brand new set. And I, in a frantic, call the publisher, like, listen, you can't release the book with the old set in there because it's so different. I mean, that was like 0.1, and now we're at like 0.7. You need to put this in there, please. And they said, no, send us what you have. We don't think we can do it. I send them your raw data. My editor calls me on the phone, and he's flipping out. What the heck is this crap? We can't, this is like, how many English errors on this? Format this. I stayed up like 2 days straight editing that 50-page document so it can actually be inserted in the book, and what you see now in the book is those 50 pages edited down to what my publisher said was agreeable.
You know I love you, buddy. I love you so much for that.
I fought for you. I fought for that to be in there. I just want you to know that.
I appreciate it. Well, it's funny because, not to get into the whole set topic, but I was at the HackerCon in West Virginia, and I literally spent every waking moment just running out like just crazy lines of code, and like it was insane because Carlos Perez was like taking movies of me coding. It was just like and then I ended up knocking out like 15,000 lines of code in like a week. That's what you saw from the mass production of that. So I appreciate it.
Yep. Well, no problem. It made a really good part of the book. So.
Ready for your next question?
Yeah, sure, please.
All right, I don't have time to read 362 pages. Can you sum it up as to what are the top few skills for a good social engineer?
No.
Read
the dang book. I mean,
the elevator speech.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, all joking aside, there is no way to really sum up social engineering, in my opinion. I mean, you can define it, but the definition to me is very general. I mean, the way we've defined social engineering on the framework is the act of influencing or manipulating a person to take an action that may or may not be in their best interest. And the reason we define it that way, which I think is very different than the way it's been defined previously in history, is because I feel that social engineering falls into categories like doctors, psychologists, priests, therapists. These people all are social engineers, but just not in a malicious way. But they're manipulating people or influencing people to take an action that they might not want to take. That is an aspect of social engineering, and many times they have to use a lot of the same skills that the bad guys use to make people do things, but just doing it in a different pattern. So there is no real elevator pitch for social engineering because, I mean, from information gathering all the way through elicitation and pretexting, those things are, college courses in themselves. Really, it's hard to define one thing that can make someone a social engineer.
How do you get the cojones to actually do this stuff? I'd be way too nervous to try half the stuff you're even recommending, even with my wife and kids. So, is having a good set of nerves a prerequisite?
I think it is. I think first of all you have to enter any circumstance that you're in, really believing that the action you're taking is allowed, which will take a lot of, I think, social engineering yourself. You have to really be prepared mentally also for any outcome. You come into a situation, let's say like in an on-site social engineer, where you're going to be on site, and you would of course love it to where you walk in, you hand someone the USB key, they insert it, you get a shell, and you're out of there. But you have to be prepared. What happens if someone asks you questions? What if someone doesn't trust you? What if they look at you, the wrong way, and they start thinking you're a bad guy? What are you going to do then? Running might not be the best option. So how are you going to handle it? I think it does take a large set of nerves to try them, but I don't know. For me, I said it a few times in the book. For me, it started off just doing these things as a young person, kind of practicing certain skills, taking certain skills, and doing these things in settings where I didn't realize that this was social engineering per se. And then later on, going, wow, how the heck did that work? How did I get into that situation and talk myself into that? And then later on in life, analyzing that and saying, heck, this was social engineering, for the lack of better definitions.
I have a whole laundry list of questions, so I can just keep going. I just don't want to manipulate her.
I don't know. Just from my perspective, when I first tried the CTF, I had no idea that there were all these, ways to go about things and all these little mind tricks that you can play with people. So I was just going into it, just using some of the natural skills that Chris talked about in his book a little bit. But I thought it was really cool to go through, like I said, the mind tricks. And so I was wondering where you came up with those. Like, my favorite was the example with Tony's pen, about how he would click it to figure out if someone was, they liked, he would wave the pen in their face. It was a really shiny pen, so it'd be visual. Then he'd click it for sound. So I was wondering where you came up with that part.
That's like an ancient, like early 80s, 90s sales trick, believe it or not. Salespeople were taught these things. And to use them when you go and you sell, like insurance was the primary thing, to use something flashy like a ring or a pen, and to see if you can get people to follow it visually to determine if they're a visual or if they get annoyed at an auditory noise during a conversation would indicate that they're an auditory, and to figure those things out quickly without, of course, being able to ask people embarrassing questions to figure that out. And I always just found that really fascinating because it worked for me every time. Maybe not the pen thing, but in different situations, being able to use certain skills like that and determine if someone is a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic thinker, and then using that and influencing them, I just found that to be like very powerful for me also. And learn that from a sales guy. Learn that from actually sitting with a sales guy and watching him do it over and over again. But there is research also that backs that up. Just so you know, there's research that backs that up, not only in the sales, but...
Yeah, no, I believe you. I feel like that was probably one of the hardest things of social engineering is to, piece that together with controlling the environment. It's probably one of the hardest things that you can do, and it can be the most effective.
I agree.
Chris, I actually got a serious question for you, buddy.
Oh no.
Actually, it's a serious question. So I read through the book, and one thing that I'll honestly say is that a lot of books have is a lot of fluff to give the book bulk. When I was going through it, it almost seemed like you had so much more information you could have kept going with it. Like it wasn't any fluff in it or anything like that. So, why don't you walk us through, like, when you're writing the book, I mean, do you feel like you could have kept going on? And as you're going through this, did you learn a lot?
I did. The learning a lot part I did, because when they approached me about writing the book, and the first thing they do is they ask you to write a table of contents and to guess at how many pages you can write for a chapter. And I sat down and said, I have no clue. I mean, I write newsletters every month, but that's short articles. I don't know how many. So they said, write a sample chapter and see, how it comes out. And they picked a sample chapter for me. And the sample chapter they picked was the tools one. So, that was easy to write, and it was easy to fill up with lots of pages because it's tools, so you can easily just write about Maltego or write about SET and take 50 pages just on that. When I got to, like, the psychological principles, because that is my favorite topic personally, I was able to sit down and I had to cut back a lot. I mean, you can ask Jim, as the tech editor, there was a few chapters where they said, listen, you got to take out this whole chunk of stuff. I wrote, like, I felt personally, because I don't have a psychology degree or anything like that, that when I came down to writing about psychology, that I needed to express a lot of research so that when people read this, they felt like I'm not just making this stuff up, but that I'm proving it through the research of some of the greatest minds in history. So I would write these historical facts. Like when I wrote the NLP thing, I forget, Jim, 8-9 pages of research on the history of the guys who created NLP. And the editors were like, you got to take that out. It's just too much. People don't care about the history of it. So a lot of times I could have felt like I could have went on about certain things, but they told me to calm it down. And they also said, don't tell everything in this book, because if it's good and people like it, then maybe there'll be something to write about in another book, Well,
let's take it from a different perspective too. I mean, Jim being a tech editor, I mean, did you see the same things that Chris was talking about?
Oh yeah. That's one thing I always thought was really interesting is the whole bookmaking process and the amount of work that the editors do. The product of the book that actually wound up on the store shelves has so many different hands in the mix there. Each one, stripping stuff out, polishing it, making it a little bit better. You can definitely see. I mean, I would get them pretty much raw before any other editor would pass through it. And my contribution was limited to just the technical portion of it. Does this sound sound? Is this reasonable? Is there anything else that should be added in, that sort of thing? And, there were sometimes I felt bad, about tearing it up. But I think that it's amazing how it came out at the end. It was beautiful.
Well, if it had been me, I would have just, completely kept telling them, this chapter sucks, you're going to have to redo it, every single time, so.
Nice, real nice. There was one chapter that Jim wrote back, and he said to me, Jim, I can tell this, right? You won't be embarrassed?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it won't bother me.
He said to me, I don't know what the heck you were smoking when you wrote this, but the whole section of this chapter is a bunch of crap, and you need to take it out, throw it out, or prove it with fact. I mean, it was so brutal. I didn't talk to Jim for 3 days. I read that, and I'm like,
that was actually the set chapter, right?
No, it wasn't. It was about the psychological principles. It was just I can't remember. I can't honestly remember what section it was, but I do remember that after I sat down and I swallowed my pride and I read what Jim's notes really were, and I went back and
For you not to talk to Jim for 3 days, I mean, it must have been pretty brutal.
Oh, it was. I mean, Jim and I talk every day, so I mean, it was brutal. Especially at the time we're doing the book. I mean, he was editing it, so we talked every day, 8 hours a day.
I'm actually kind of disappointed that Jim didn't get me involved in these type of shenanigans that we could have played on you during this process.
That's because Jim took it seriously like a business, and he knew that this was professional.
Jim, I'm disappointed in you, buddy.
And plus, I paid him $5,000 to keep you out of it.
I'm still waiting on that check. Still waiting on it.
It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
Let's see. Allison, you want to hop in?
I don't know that I have a question immediately. I'm really enjoying this. First of all, the banter, but the questions are really excellent. One of the things that I found really useful out of this, the company that I work for is a small interactive agency, and prior to me joining the team and sort of taking the lead on this, we didn't have a security policy. We didn't have much of anything, and we've got some pretty big clients. And I feel like we've gotten to the point where we need to up our game a little bit. And so, after writing a 60-page security policy, I'm giving a keynote class next week on security and social engineering, specifically because the people who are answering the phones have no idea what that looks like. They would be completely open to any type of manipulation because they just haven't been trained on it yet. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And this book was really helpful, giving very practical scenarios. And I of course, just finished Kevin Mitnick's book, which was also fantastic, but a lot of those examples were more for much larger companies. Now, we're only a 30-person shop or so the odds of somebody calling and saying that they're from the IT department wouldn't make sense. I mean, we can all see each other. We all know who each other are. And so I thought that the breadth of the examples that were given was incredibly helpful, and it's going to be I'm still going through it. I'm still kind of pulling examples out to help train my team on what to look for. So it's been incredibly valuable.
Yeah, thank you.
What I'd like to do before we continue with the questions for Chris, I'd like to just actually go through with our guests here and find out. We'll start with you, Allison. What aspect of social engineering is most interesting to you?
Oh gosh. It's interesting. I have a really long history, probably longer than my bio. I had started when I was 18 as a stockbroker on Wall Street, and as I was reading through this book, I'm looking at, as you said, a lot of these things were pulled from salespeople, and a lot of things are looking familiar to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, we used to do that. I totally remember that. I think, I was married to a private investigator for a while, and so I got to see a lot of this in action. Of course, it wasn't called anything back then. It was just being a PI, and watching him pretext was a thing to behold. And I never felt I was very good at it, but watching him on the phone or actually being out and following somebody was really just an amazing skill that I had so much respect for. And I think now, because I'm in a security field, just understanding the true scope of the types of shenanigans that can be pulled is absolutely fascinating to me. And the ways, and a lot of this is stuff that I've done for for law enforcement and stuff that I teach law enforcement how to do, although certainly not to this extent and for very specific reasons. But I find it fascinating. I find psychology incredibly fascinating, and that's what all of this has to do with, and that people want to be helpful. I don't. I mean, I don't like people, so I don't ever feel the obligation to be particularly helpful to anyone.
You know what's funny? If I can tell you a story about this, what's really interesting is this one part of this chapter I wrote when we're talking about reciprocation and the principles of influence from Cialdini. I wrote about this one example of how your neighbor, who you're more prone to help. A stranger off the street, or your neighbor you're a neighbor who you don't like, or a friend. So I've used some example like that. And Jim wrote back something like, "I'm not inclined to help either of them. Who cares?" And the editor wrote back, because they're not in security. "Yeah, I think I agree with Chris. I'd be more prone to help the neighbors. I think us on the security field, we're more like you, Allison. It's when it comes to helping people out, we're definitely more on the paranoid side. Yeah, we're paranoid." That's cool, though. Stockbroker to a security guru. Interesting story.
What's that?
Sorry, Jim. A stockbroker to a security person. That's
yeah, and the parallels are still really quite interesting. I had not necessarily realized that some of those skills were skills I already had from basically when you start off as a stockbroker, you're a glorified salesperson, and so you spend a lot of your time fooling people on the phone and manipulating conversations. And I was in foreign exchange, which is a tough sell. It's really hard to call somebody in Arkansas and explain to them that they need to buy, 100 million Japanese yen. And so that kind of verbal dexterity it was actually the fun part of the job. I mean, it sounds horrible to say, but manipulating people was fun. It was really fun, and I finally got out of that field, ironically, because I started to notice myself doing it to people I actually cared about, where I would phrase things in a very specific way to elicit a very specific response. I'm like, oh, God, what am I doing? I need to get out of this field. I have a soul.
I'm guilty.
Let's see, did we get John back?
I think John's back.
I'm back, yeah.
Awesome. So what about you, John? What's interesting to you about social engineering?
I've always had my interests in psychology, whether it's cognitive or even clinical aspects of it. And through reading and studying and just talking to people, I begin to gather the aspects of social engineering, from just building rapport to actually eliciting information. And then just reading about that led me to the actual methodologies and actually how the human mind worked when doing this, when attacking it. And that led me to reading about neurolinguistic programming and even hypnosis and more of the other less known aspects of it. And I've just been, the book laid it out perfectly for someone that hasn't had the actual practical experience, but the knowledge still, it built upon the framework on the Social Engineer website, and it felt like it completed the knowledge that I was searching for in my studies across the internet. And that's what I really loved about the book, was it brought together all the things I was trying to learn into one book, one easy to find and understand format.
Nice. Ron?
I've, too, have also been interested in psychology and human factors. My master's thesis was on usability, and then I stumbled into security and ended up making it into a career. What's also interesting is my wife is a professor of psychology, although I've actually never taken a psychology course, just done a lot of research and study as well. At the RSA conference in 2010, there was a packed room for a session with Bruce Schneier and Jacob Nielsen. Those who don't know, Bruce Schneier, of course, guru for InfoSec. Jacob Nielsen is the same way on the usability side of human-computer interaction. and the idea was about human factors and security. And they had a good conversation. I asked, okay, where do we go for more information? Bruce Schneier's response, read a book. So I said, what book? Psychology of Fear, I believe is the one he mentioned. And I've read that, and it kind of sort of covers it. But now I think we finally do have that book that we can give to information security and just security professionals to understand about the human influence and the human frailties and how it can be manipulated, whether on purpose or through skilled users. That's what I found I liked about this book. It's in one comprehensive resource covering a lot of the different things, all the way from how to win friends and influence people, Dale Carnegie's book where take off your white hat, put on your black hat. It's actually a consummate social engineering book. But you've covered that in this, as well as Cialdini's Psychology of Influence, even Tim Sanders' The Likability Factor. I see references to all of these types of references all in one resource, so you don't have to pull out a library for it. So I appreciate that you put this together, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
So Morgan, what's interesting to you about social engineering?
I'd say the whole thing is pretty interesting, but I'm going to go back to I think it was John that mentioned about how there's, the whole science to it. That's probably what I find most interesting. A lot of people probably can, persuade someone to do something that they don't want to do, and then later they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. But then it takes what I think a real social engineer is going to make someone do something, and then later they're not even going to realize that they were just influenced to do something they didn't want to do.
That is very accurate.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So Jim, what do you think of engineering?
What's that?
Why? Honestly, this is going to sound bad, but I'm lazy, and when I'm doing a pen test, it's the easiest way in, and if I'm going to do the least amount of work possible if I'm trying to simulate a real attacker, and so I'm going to get that shell without putting out effort if possible, and this is if I can do it by sending someone an email or calling someone on the phone and just talking to them a little bit, win for me. What about you, Dave?
I mean, exactly what you said. No, I mean, for me, it's I'm very attack oriented, from a penetration testing standpoint. So I have a very, I would say, narrow focus on what I utilize social engineering for. But I'd say what fascinates me about it is I can see how I can use it every day and start applying it to everything I do and see results with it. And so for me, it's been everything from, penetration testing. It's a very easy way to, attack a network and get access to systems by simply picking up the phone. But just to how I behave on a regular basis, it's kind of like a new way of living.
Completely, yeah.
No, wait. I'm confused here. We have a lot of InfoSec, a lot of technical people on, and a lot of techies just don't always get the human factor. So why is human factors important for the technical crowd? Can't we just run Nmap and throw some of these tools at the problem? Why do we need to even understand this about this human factor? Can't we just throw a firewall or lock everything down?
Because the human factor is always going to be the weakest link.
Exactly.
You can have multi-layered security out the wazoo and really have all kinds of strong technical barriers in the way. But it's amazing what a phone call or two can do. And the social engineering workshop at DEF CON, that was a fantastic illustration of it. It was like, hey, let's call Google. Let's see how far we can get. And there's not enough technology in the world to stop that from happening.
So you're saying even with a WikiLeaks, that's couldn't have been solved with a good DLP solution?
Yeah, I still don't think so. No.
I'll just throw this out to the group. Whoever wants to chime in on this. What do you think you learned most out of going through the book? Where do you think the biggest improvement's going to be, or is it all just reinforcement of ideas that you already had in your head?
It more built a more sturdier framework for me. I'd already had a bunch of book knowledge about the actual steps and from reading the website's framework, but it built upon that framework and actually led me to more studies relating to NLP and microexpressions with Paul Ekman's FACS and microexpression training tool. And, that's led me even further in my studies from trying to just get a more foot in the door with NLP and the more unheard of aspects of social engineering.
Anyone else have anything to throw in there?
Really, it just moved on to another question where I wanted to ask Chris. The book's a great, in my opinion, a great starting point even for people wanting to get into social engineering. And I was wondering what his views or even the group's views were on where social engineering is going in terms of is it going to be in business management textbooks saying you need to have a social engineer mitigation plan, or college textbooks relating to psychology? Where do you see the field going in the next few years?
That's a really good question. We already got contacted through Ron, who's here on the podcast with us, for the use of this book in a college course. So I don't know, how to tell you what's going to happen in the future as far as if this will become more of a business used tool. Personally, if you ask me what I think should happen, I think it should, because
absolutely, yeah.
Too many times, and we saw this in the CTF. Fortune 500 companies, massive companies that probably have millions or more, hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars worth of IDS, firewalls, packet inspection, everything known to man, but they don't have a couple $1,000s worth of employee training a year to just teach them how to decipher a social engineering attack. They don't train their people how to be aware of this phone call may be malicious, or what questions should not be answered under any circumstances. And those kinds of things are necessary if businesses want to not fall to these attacks.
I think a lot of how the industry goes is based off of what's popular. And, if you look at the trends in security, you look at, the major worms that were hitting. You had Conficker and not that was like Slammer and the older ones like that. So people, invested heavily in firewalls. And then, we heard 10 years of web applications and SQL injection getting pounded in our heads. And so companies invested in application security. And while social engineering isn't new, it isn't something that was a focus. It was something that kind of died off when technology hit. So now that it's a focus, after we get it pounded in our heads for the next few years, I think companies will shift and actually move to trying to do have a comprehensive program around combating social engineering and try to fix it. But at the same time, we're going to lose focus on another area, or there's going to be a brand new avenue, and social engineering is going to be a back burner again, and then it's going to be big again in the next 10 years. So I think it's going to be kind of a cyclical effect.
To me, it's like I think Forrester or one of these groups did a research study that said 81% of the breaches that occurred in organizations had a part of it that involved social engineering. So the problem is it's not a one-step solution. Like maybe the end result for a lot of these people were that they had a USB key with a Trojan on it that should have been caught by their firewalls, antivirus, IDS, whatever. It should have been caught by that. But the way that the USB key got in there was through a social engineering attack. But what you hear in the report is, virus owns company or something to that effect. And then they go and they spend $500,000 on new antivirus and whatever and get it in there. But the part about the social engineering doesn't get into the mainstream. So I think that's the vector, like what Jim said. Most people are like what Jim said. They're in a sense inherently lazy. We want the easiest path to the win. Easiest path to the win is the people.
But don't you think though, since social engineers come out and everybody else has come out with social engineering topics, I think it's been a pretty heavy topic for the past year or two.
Yeah, I would say
I think you're seeing it. I think you're seeing the fulfillment of social engineering as a viable attack vector, and it always has been. But I think, again, it becoming mainstream. I think, companies are
is too. Is in some way your fault, Dave. certain aspects of social engineering attacks have now become commoditized, where the level of effort required to conduct them or the level of work that goes into the infrastructure supporting a social engineering attack is now extremely easy to get set up. It's not universal, not across the board for every sort, but there's many attacks that used to be a lot of work to set up, but now it's just a few types on the keyboard and you're done.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, the dilemma behind that, obviously releasing tools that can potentially compromise an organization, but at the same time, you have organizations using it to test their security program and protecting themselves against. I know a lot of Fortune 500, 1,000 companies that use SET all the time, and consulting firms. Every consulting firm I talk to is using SET. They have been for a long period of time. So, obviously the bad guys can use it too. But I think it brings awareness, and I think I think social engineering as a whole, and I think what you've done, Chris, and Jim, and Mutz, and all of us, with social engineer, is kind of bring it to that next pedestal to where hey, it is kind of a focus, and the book just kind of adds on to that. It's an addition to try to bring focus to really what the threat is, and obviously our statement's always been we believe social engineering is one of the. Speaking of which, did the poll results come back for that?
The poll, no, well, not yet. We haven't put the results out, but go ahead, because I think your our prophecy is definitely going to be fulfilled. It looks like most people are voting yes on that. Yeah.
So our slogan, or what we've always believed, is that social engineering is one of the largest risks as we face as organizations, as businesses, and individuals. The ability to circumvent, as everybody else had mentioned, millions of dollars of firewalls and HIPSs and web application firewalls and different things is just it's trivial. So I think companies are trying to bite off on it, but the problem is it's got to be so overhyped, and it's got to be so insane to have companies invest funding in dollars and things like that. And I think it's it's interesting to see.
With that said, to throw this out to everybody as well, what are you doing to defend yourself, your company, your family, your organization, whatever, against these sorts of attacks?
Well, we removed all phones from our employees, so.
And all computers, burn them all.
Right.
They're all a threat. I think the big thing is, and you had a great podcast on this a few months ago, is to stop the mindlessness. It's when people just stop thinking is really when they become most vulnerable. So it's often through that awareness training, but I've been in numerous companies. Actually, I've just very recently become a professional. And at many companies, I'm not even allowed to get to most of the employees to perform security awareness training. And these are large, sometimes Fortune 500 companies. So we try to find other ways to do it just through little events, just to remind people to be aware of what they're doing. Don't just blindly click a link or pick up something, a USB you find in the parking lot. I think keeping the message as simple as possible is the way to go, and just remind people, just think before you act.
See, I think, personally, this is not an argument to you. I think the first stage is what you're saying, Ron. I think, though, that in my experience, and I learned this way, is that just simply being told something doesn't have an impact. Information awareness training, security awareness training, to me is failing in that aspect, that it does not impact its viewers, because it's a DVD, it's a 90-minute or whatever DVD or a program that is really boring, and people tune out after 10 or 15 minutes, and they're thinking about what's for lunch or what they're going to do that night or the weekend. And security awareness training has to have an impact. It has to blow people out of their seats and say, holy mackerel, that was easy. I can't believe that this cracking a 5-character password took this guy 15 seconds. Wow, I saw what happens when a USB got put in with a malicious PDF. I think the security awareness training has to be taken to another level to make people aware of the other aspect of social engineering. So this is what happens. This guy comes in, he's charming, he talks to you, he asks you good questions, he elicits information. Now that's all well and good, but here's what happens next stage. And until people see that and smacked in the face with it, it's not going to make a difference to them. That's just my opinion, but I think that's what we saw in the DEF CON CTF, is that's what people were failing. A lot of the companies that called us after the fact to talk to us about the findings told us that they have security awareness programs already implemented. And these companies are probably spending tens or more thousands of dollars a year on their security awareness programs. Why was it so easy to get into these companies then? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I absolutely agree, and I think that that's one of the reasons why this, and, as I said, I'm preparing to do some of this security training and social engineering training, and having really clear examples that do have a really dramatic impact, I think, is going to make all the difference. And I think you're right. They tend to be really boring. My talks tend not to be boring because I swear a lot, and that helps. And I've got a guy in his underwear in the PowerPoint, so I like to keep it interesting. But certainly, I think having those real life scenarios is absolutely critical. Otherwise, you're talking about abstract things that don't actually get associated with anything in real life for them. And so, having so many great examples and having so many really very clear-cut and very to-the-point scenarios to pick from, I think is hugely important, and will be just a huge help in helping me show my crew that if you're answering the phone or if you're answering emails from anybody that you don't know, this is something that you need to be aware of. These are examples that you need to really think about. And I'm making these policies, and it's not because I'm a pain in the butt and I feel like feel like coming up with arbitrary rules. There are actually reasons for all of it, and I think having those examples goes a really long way in making that lasting impact.
That is what makes the book different, too, is that you do have the case studies in the back, so they actually show the examples. I do have a question for the group, though. Sorry, Chris, but are there videos available showing social engineering techniques? Pictures worth 1,000 words. Have anyone seen videos showing some of these?
Not good ones.
Not really. No, I haven't seen one good video that even portrayed the most basic. I mean, there's all these TV shows like The Real Hustle or the proof of concept type things, but they don't build on the actual social engineering concepts and to preach to the user for training. No.
I'll tell you why. Major reason why you can't is, let's say in our social engineering audits, two things. One is anything that I videotape is now property of the company that hired us to do the audit. And if I release it without their permission, I can be sued. So the second is doing a social engineering event, let's say. I go to my bank and I try to elicit information out of the teller, and I record it. I need to have their written permission in most of the 50 states in order to release that publicly, especially with a hidden camera. And you're not going to get too much social engineering footage if you walk into a place with a whole camera crew. So, in order to successfully capture video, you would have to, in essence, walk into a place, get management to sign off that you can do videotaping. And we ran into this. Jim and I recently tried to work some things out to get some good video. And the problem came in branding. Companies were like, listen, we can't authorize this. What if our brand gets on the Internet and they see you, social engineering XYZ company? Everyone's going to try this now at every one of our branches because it's successful for you. It's basically putting a target on their forehead. So you're not going to see high-quality social engineering videos out there unless companies like we've been talking about trying to stage some things, but making them realistic enough that you can see this in play, but it still won't be like reality TV. That's unfortunate.
Real world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best learning would be actually seeing it in action, like what they do on The Real Hustle. To me, that show's phenomenal. Because you see people, real live people, falling for these scams, and because it's a scam, you're going, no, don't do it, and yet you can almost see yourself falling for this.
Yeah.
Do you see that show on ABC called What Would You Do? Something to that effect?
Don't believe so, no.
This show's phenomenal, okay? I don't know if it's still on. I mean, it might have only aired like 3 or 4 times, but this guy, basically it's a news program ABC puts on that. What would you do in these scenarios? So they have this scenario where this guy identifies himself to a pedestrian, just a plainclothes person, not involved in the scam at all, says, I'm a private investigator, shows them a fake badge, says, inside this store is a woman who kidnapped a child, and I need you to help me obtain the child back. And it was like 4 out of the 5 people asked helped to kidnap the child.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 people who were asked to help to take the child back actually helped steal the child back. And with no proof that this kid was kidnapped except for a fake badge. And the one guy who didn't still agreed to help a little bit by blocking the woman when the woman came out running out of the store to get her kid back, for blocking her if the guy actually took the kid himself. And afterward, when they interviewed these people, saying, what were you thinking? Well, he had a badge. He had a badge, so he had to be the real deal. And this is to have those kind of videos is invaluable. Those kind of shows are good because it shows you the gullibility of people and what actually works and what doesn't. But unfortunately, there's not much out there as far as straight SE video.
What about audio recordings? For example, if you were organizing getting some background information on somebody via the telephone, would it be possible to record that and just bleep out the company names and things like that? I think barring a really good reality TV type of thing, that might actually be really helpful to hear it, even if you can't see it.
There's a website called rcfp.org, and on that website there's a list of all 50 states, and if both consent is required. You'll notice in some states, depending on where you live, if you get a call from a telemarketer, if they're going to record the call, they have to state, this call may be recorded for quality control purposes. Unless they state that, it is illegal for them to record the call.
Right.
So for you to record a phone call in most states, I'm looking at the list now just as we scroll down, probably more than a quarter of the states, you would have to have a recording that says, or a statement that says, we might record this call for quality control purposes. So a lot of the problems become in practicalities of the actual recording of the information. Yeah, and legalities. Could you record it and then, like Allison said, bleep out the names, and then if someone asks, just say, yeah, sure, that was in New York, because that state allows. New York is one state that you don't have to have consent from anybody. That you can tape anything.
You don't have to have consent for anything in New York.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, you look at it, but there's only a handful of states where there is no penalties for disclosing or publishing information, like Arizona, Arkansas, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington are the only states in the country that allow not only the recording, but then the releasing or publishing of the information without getting hammered by the law.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of it...
throw this out there on that topic, just to throw this out there on that topic, one of the things that we've looked at before is, and I hate to say this, but a model that is somewhat similar that gets away with it is a lot of the phone pranks that are out there. There's a lot of the phone prank groups that will go out there, record conversations, and then put them on their websites or on YouTube and that sort of thing. The problem is, like Chris is saying, while they are getting away with it, it's still sketchy. And to do it for us to do it, it's just not going to happen because it's too much crossing the line. But yeah, there's a model out there for it, for someone that wants to take that risk.
Yeah, that's the thing. When we talked to the EFF about CTF and even the legalities of recording those calls just for later purposes, it really came back to us that we're risking our day jobs, our reputations, getting sued, all those things. You're risking all that by making a recording of a phone call and then publishing it. I guess probably ways around it, like Allison said. You record it, you bleep out names, you bleep out things. Someone asks, you say, well, it was agreed upon, the parties all agreed upon, have some fake consent form signed, but I don't know if you want to get that hairy into it,
Mm-hmm. Going back on what was said earlier real quick, apart from really good, proactive security awareness training that doesn't keep the group bored, are there any good inherent security schemes that you would be happy to preach to a company that is asking, that you just audited or is wanting information about a good proactive scheme?
I do think that in the book I say this, but I think there's a couple things that are really important, because all the information that you obtain in a social engineering audit is only valuable, I mean, unless, of course, you give up the passwords, but most of the time social engineers aren't going for that. So they're going for things like, all the stuff we did in the CTF, who handles your dumpster company, who handles your cafeteria, who's your antivirus vendor, who does your PDF, stuff like that. That information is only valuable if your software is also vulnerable. So keeping your software up to date is a big key in also mitigating social engineering attacks. Maybe not the attack itself, but the effect of the attack afterward. Now that's it sounds silly, but if you give out the information of you use Adobe 7.0, you're screwed. But if you're using the brand new version that has no vulnerabilities and has been patched, then your likelihood of getting hacked is much less. I think that's one thing that at least I preach to. Another one that I mentioned was developing scripts. And I don't mean, when I say that, I have to really be cautious because people get hairy. I hate scripts in the sense of you give somebody a paragraph they have to read on a phone call. So when I talk about scripts, I mean, if 1 plus 1 happens, then this must be 2, so here's what you do. In essence, if someone asks this question, here is your response that you can give. And it's not to be read, but it's something like, someone asks you, I'll give you an example. Someone asks you, what version of Adobe Reader do you use? I'm sorry, we don't give that information out to the public. Well, I want to send you a PDF, and I'm not sure if it's going to work with your system. So I'm not, I want to know so I don't waste time. Well, why don't you send a PDF? I'll have my guys analyze it, and if it's not, we'll call you back. Something as simple as that could mitigate many of the PDF attacks that happen on companies because they're not giving that information out. And it would make a social engineer less successful in their attempts to attack. So developing certain scripts on the questions that generally get asked in your company or your field could really help mitigating those attacks.
Okay.
Along those lines, we tend to focus a lot on organizations and companies, but what does everyone do about, their parents, their brother, their sister, their grandparents, the personal attacks that wind up coming through on these? What do you see as protection for those? For
the general people? You mean just the moms and dads and not corporations?
Joe, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is being aware of the information that you give out. I know this year, Jim and I, we covered this so much. Social networking sites are ridiculous. They're all over the top. And unfortunately, what you see a lot of times is these people are releasing information, and they have no clue that this piece of information on Twitter, compiled with this on Facebook, with this on this site, with this on that site, all of a sudden you have a full profile of this individual. Where they like to eat, when they leave home, where they live, what their resumes are, what they're looking for work, their hobbies, everything about them. People don't realize that putting that information out there makes the job of an identity thief so much easier.
Another idea I have in stopping scammers is that, well, first of all, don't do anything in the peak of the moment. Don't do things because of passion or emotion. Stop and think. Also, reach out to somebody. I see a lot of the predators are like the lions on the African plain going after that lone gazelle. They try to separate out from the herd, but the more you can get in with others. So what I recommend to people is seek out somebody else and ask, hey, does this look right to you? Get a second opinion, if you will. And that can also help solve some of these problems. I've done that with my parents, that if they get something that looks a little bit odd, I'll look at it, and actually 90% of the time it's someone trying to take advantage of them because they are up there in age. So I recommend, and I don't know your thoughts on this, what you see about having people reach out to others and get other opinions.
That's great advice. Even if the fact alone that reaching out will delay their response, usually that delay is enough to mitigate some attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you said, because your first response about don't do things in impulse. If mom or dad feel a little insecure about something, and the guy's pressuring them. I wrote about this story in the book. This guy comes to our house trying to sell boxes of meat or whatever, out of the back of his truck, right? And this guy's pressuring my wife. I mean, pressuring hard. If you don't buy this is the last time I'm coming in this area for 6 months. You're gonna suffer. Your kids are gonna hate you. Your husband's gonna divorce you. He paints a picture like your life is bad if you don't buy this meat. And the pressure is so strong that most people probably cave in. And what you said, I think, is good advice. Take a step back. Well, you know what? Come back when you're here in 6 months again. I'm not going to die without it. So if you're not here, if you're saying you're not coming back in the area for 6 months, well, then I guess you're not making any sales for 6 months. So when you're back here 6 months, come see me. And it gives you that time to delay and not make an emotional reaction to a question that might cause you to cause a breach.
And certainly, having been a broker, you're prepared for exactly that type of reaction. Let me talk to my wife. Let me talk to my husband. And so it should at least just be noted that anybody who's actually good at their job is going to have an answer for that too. And so to kind of reinforce the fact that okay, well, come back and see me in 6 months then, and then they're going to be prepared with an answer for that, and let them know that just saying that may not actually make it go away, and they should be prepared to really stick to that.
Yeah, that's a good piece of knowledge, because exactly that is what happened with this guy. He said, well, what do you think your husband would say, if you, when he comes home, if you told him that you saved $3 a pound for meat, wouldn't he be happy? And she's like, I don't know, why don't we ask him? He's inside. And then it's like, oh, crap. And I just came out and slapped the guy around, After getting him down from $4 a pound to $1.12 a pound, I just said, I don't want to go away. So
yeah, I mean, when we would make these calls, depending on whether it was a male or a female who was answering, and if they said, let me talk to my wife, then of course you have to play on their masculinity. Do you ask your wife about everything?
Right.
You make the decisions. And there's a lot of head games involved in that. As I had said earlier, that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about reading this, was because it brought back a lot of memories of the kind of stuff that we would pull on people. But depending on who's picking up that phone and what their reaction is, anybody who's good at their job is going to have an answer for that too. So you got to stick to your guns.
I love doing that. Actually, I'll do that sometimes, even though my wife's not like this. I'll play that part, that role. Sometimes we go to buy something big, and we'll try to chew the guy down. I have to ask my wife, really? You ask your wife about everything? I said, dude, you don't understand. My wife abuses me. She broke my arm once. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3". I'm not a small man. And they're like, really? And I'm like, no, I'm serious, man. I came home one day. I bought something for my wife. I thought it'd be a present. She broke my arm. I was in the hospital for a week. So, dude, I got to ask my wife about everything. Oh, man, I'm really sorry. But, I know that if I can get it for like $200 less, she probably wouldn't be mad.
Nice.
Terrible. Sorry.
As long as the topic is up there, it's something that's definitely, this is the podcast to bring it up. There's always a lot of talk that comes up about the gender differences and the stereotypes that go along with that and how people get treated differently. Since we happen to have two women on the podcast this month, I think it's worth throwing out to you. Do you find that whole stereotyping issue is there as much as what common knowledge thinks that it is? And if so, do you find that it's a big problem, or do you find that it's something that you can use to your advantage in a social engineering aspect?
I will put it this way: I do not believe that I would have been as successful of a stockbroker if I were not female. There are definitely, if there's a man on the other end of the phone, and certainly I'm speaking anecdotally. I don't have any research on this. I'm just speaking for myself. But there are definitely times when you can get away with things and really push those buttons in a way that only women can do. And And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an advantage. Although, I mean, as I said, my first husband was a PI, and listening to him on the phone was amazing. And of course, he was much better with women. I think as long as there's someone of the opposite sex on the other end of the phone, I think you're already at an advantage.
I agree with you, Allison, but I also think that women are better at social engineering.
Of course, we're ask anybody who's ever been married, they're like, oh yeah, women are manipulative, blah blah blah. That's exactly what this is. Yeah. We're just we're using our powers for different reasons.
I agree.
What about you, Morgan? Any thoughts on that?
I'm going to agree. I think probably women are better at it, and I also think that whether you're a man or a female, then that plays a big part in who you're going to target. So you see a lineup of people who are going to pick out of that crowd to go after, who are you going to manipulate,
Makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely. I think it's really interesting the different approach that you would take, say, for example, in a telephone situation, depending on who were to answer, whether they were male or female. I think it's really interesting how, at least for me, the way that I approach that is very different depending on whether it's a man or a woman. Because if it's a woman, there's a chance that I'll play to some level of camaraderie or helplessness, hoping that she'll respond to that. If it's a guy, I might be a little more flirtatious or. So I think it's interesting how you sort of have to think on your feet if you're not calling someone specifically, you're trying to get a general piece of information, and so manipulating that way and having to be quick on your feet on how you're handling your approach is kind of fun.
I agree with that. That's a good.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what I find interesting about the topic is there's a lot of things that everybody accepts as common knowledge, but it's always interesting to hear, what people are actually affected by that think about those preconceived notions that people have. I just realized the time, and we should probably wrap up here soon. What have we not talked about that's you guys wanted to cover?
I have one. Can these techniques be used by security professionals, say even in their daily engagements, to help influence better security practices in their organization?
Heck yeah. I use these things, and without being malicious, I mean this honestly, I use these things every day with my family, my friends, myself. I think that's what I mean about social engineering. Sometimes it gets a real bad rap because of the low quality of information that used to be available out there about it. But I think social engineering covers a lot, and it's more than just tricking someone into doing something that is bad for them. I think you can social engineer yourself. Reframing. Framing is one of my favorite sections in the book, talking about framing. You use that on yourself as a daily thing. Okay, I'm having a bad day. Here's something that happened, but I need to reframe my position, otherwise it's going to wreck the rest of my week. How can I do that to make it better? Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, those things are used. NLP was based in the 70s on therapy. I mean, it was a new therapeutic method that was used to help people who were having psychological problems to be able to overcome those problems. Yet it's heavily used in social engineering. But you can use that thing on a daily basis to and I don't mean this in a malicious way, but to manipulate yourself, influence yourself or those around you for positive things.
I absolutely agree with that, and one thing that I think is kind of interesting, you guys don't know me that well, but I'm a little rough around the edges, and my company actually sent me to a performance coach, basically because it's a very introvert-dominated company, and I am very in your face and very direct, and they felt that it would benefit everyone if I were taught how to better relate to them. And what I think is really interesting is the same techniques that could be described as social engineering are the same things that they paid a lot of money for me to be taught how to do so that I would make everyone's life a little less miserable. So I definitely agree that there's it does get a bad rap, and there are really useful day-to-day things. It's more a matter of, okay, I know I'm dealing with a really introverted guy who's really uncomfortable dealing face-to-face, so I'll deal with him this way, or I'll phrase it this way because I know that that's how he'll respond better. And, that's what 6 months of performance coaching taught. But a huge part of that is really directly related to social engineering.
I agree. And I think if you have kids, this is even more valuable. I have a little girl, and she will constantly try to manipulate me, or when she gets stressed in school and she doesn't want to talk about answers or work harder or try harder at something. One of the greatest techniques in NLP that I learned a while ago that you can use is asking, well, let's make believe you did know the answer to this question. What do you think it would be then? Just that simple statement. Now, I'm not putting the pressure on her to tell me the answer. I'm saying something like, make believe you know the answer, and then tell me what you think you would be in make-believe world. And every kid loves that. Oh, well, if I was going to make believe, I think the answer is 12. 6 plus 6. Oh, well, you know what? Your make-believe mind is right. Now you get her to do what you wanted, but I didn't have to, evilly influence her, manipulate her. I just used NLP skills in order to make her do something that I wanted to do. It's a principle that you can use in everyday life. You want her to eat a breakfast in the morning, so you don't say, what do you want for breakfast, and then she goes, the sugary cereal. Okay, so what do you want for breakfast? How do you want your eggs for breakfast? See, she still has a choice in the matter, but you're getting her to eat what you want, eggs, but now you tell me how you want them. So, little things like that you can use to influence and manipulate, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing, but they're used in everyday life. But, again, you turn that around. You can use that in a social engineering audit just as successfully.
And the reality is your kids are going to try and socially engineer you, so you may as well hit them first.
Heck yeah. He is a master.
Oh, yeah, children always are. It's amazing to hear the things that come out of their mouth, and you're like, dang, why didn't I think of that? That was
no joke. I mean, my what's scary is, and I told Jim this story, I took some online training with Dr. Ekman, Paul Ekman, on microexpressions, and while I was doing the training, my daughter happened to be, I work from home, the home office. My daughter was sitting with me on some of the sessions, and she was picking this stuff up, and I didn't realize it. She's picking these things up, and then we're in the grocery store, and this woman's walking by us in the aisle, and she looks down at my daughter. She says, "Oh, aren't you cute?" And my daughter, who normally is very outgoing, and she's smiley and happy, she hides behind me. So later on, I said, the lady goes away, and I said, "What's up with that? You're not usually like that." And she says, "That lady had scary eyes. She was angry." And I'm like, "What made you say that?" She goes, "She looks like the woman in your video, that had angry eyes." And I'm like, holy mackerel, she picked this stuff up, and she's reading people's micro-expressions while we're walking through the grocery store.
Wow.
So now we have contests sitting and watching the TV and see who can read their expressions faster.
Daughter's going to be a menace.
She is. I'm telling you, my wife said, you're ruining me. She goes, you better not die, because, if you die, I'm up the creek, because I don't know how I'm going to deal with this girl when she's got all these skills and I have no clue what's going on. So I'm going to hire her.
Now when she's 16.
Yeah, when she's 16, I'm locking her in a tower.
And you always say I'm verbose.
I know, man. That was like plus VV.
Yeah, VVV. Yeah.
VVV.
Anyone else have anything they want to throw out there before we wrap up?
Thank you for the book. I mean, it's been a great learning experience for me, and it's opened me up to many things.
Thank you, guys. No, really, I appreciate all your kind remarks and the feedback.
Looking forward to the second one.
Dear Lord, oh man, it was a process writing this one.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I'm not an author by trade, It's not something that just came to me. So this was a big mental push.
Mm-hmm.
You should thank God for Jim. Jim kept me focused.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, my job was easy. All I had to do was insult Chris on a regular basis. So
keep him motivated.
In that one chapter, it was so brutal.
You had to social engineer the social engineer.
Oh, he doesn't even try. He didn't even try. He just came right out and said, "This is bull crap." He goes, "If you print this, no one's going to respect you." I mean, it was like almost slashed my wrists, Oh, man.
Here's what I think is interesting, too, and it goes back to the whole process of these sorts of things, is when you're in any sort of endeavor, you get pressure as far as some of it's perceived and some of it's actual, as far as what's expected of you. And when you're producing something, anything that's written, you have to say what you're going to say and not what you think someone wants you to go through. And, I think that what is good about this process and this book and what it's shown is, the publisher was very supportive with allowing Chris to say what he wanted to say and not what was originally perhaps in the outline. As things go through and it evolves, ideas change and structure changes. And I think the whole process was very accommodating for getting the message out there in the right way.
I agree with that. That was a real good statement, Jim, because the publisher, Wiley, was really easy to work with on that part, and I did change some things halfway through, and then with Jim's prompting, a lot of times there would be a part in the book that I needed more time. I knew this to be a fact, but Jim would say, look, if you state this, no one's going to believe you. You need research. And I had to find, medical papers. A lot of you'll notice as you read it, or if you read it already, that there's a lot of references to medical papers and psychologists and other doctors. And I had to find that stuff because a lot of these things that I was referencing to, I knew, but if you didn't reference it to something that's been proven, then someone can easily say, well, that's just your opinion. And I'm like, I know these things to be fact. And Jim said, prove it. Prove it to be fact. Yeah. Show me the research and then show me an example of how it works. And that really did make the book a lot better than I had even anticipated at the end reading it. I was like, wow, this really came out a lot better than was in my head even in the beginning.
I have a question for you, Chris, because this is something we didn't talk about. I remember I was just flipping through the book here, and I remember editing this section where you're talking about GPS tracking of vehicles. And I remember when I got that, I went through there and I calculated how fast you were actually driving. And I looked up the speed limit in the area that you were driving. And I found that you were actually speeding in quite a few of those areas. And I put that down there.
First of all, in the book, I don't say that it was me driving, and I will not admit that right now in a public recording. The person that I happen to be tracking, who will remain unknown to the public, yes, was speeding at that point in time. But I don't know who that person is. I can't remember. I have no recollection of the events in question. Thank you.
Okay.
So did that come up with the editors at all?
No. They did ask, because you wrote that note, they did ask if I do want to release that information publicly, can it incriminate me? And I actually did go back to the EFF, and they said, "Oh God." I did, because you brought it up. You made me nervous. I'm going to get a speeding ticket for my book or something. And they did. They came back and said, "No, you know what? Even on the podcast, we had that guy who came on and admitted to being an identity thief. He can admit all you want, unless you give names, places, dates, everything. There's no law enforcement on earth that can possibly nail you down to that." And in the book, I did not state it was me that was being tracked. I still will not state that it was me. Maybe it was someone else in my family, or maybe it was you, Jim. Maybe I put that tracker on your car. You hear that, police? That's Jim's car.
Well, trucking companies actually do that. They track their drivers, and they monitor from a central location, and if they see them speeding for too long, they'll tell them to pull over.
Yeah, this was just, again, for the tools part, we work with a company called Spy Associates, and they give us, every couple months, they'll give us a set of tools that we get to demo and test. So for the book, I really hammered it out and got a lot of these tools and tested them and beta tested them and used them. Worked really awesome. I mean, the tool section had a lot of nice stuff in there because of those guys and being able to demo this stuff and then take screenshots and show how it works.
Another thing that's worth putting out there as far as something that came out of the book, and this is everybody plays jokes on Chris. That's kind of I don't think Dave's on the line right now, but that's always kind of the thing to do is pick on Chris. But Chris actually got me pretty good on this one because I got the book and. He sent me a screenshot. I think it was a photograph. The book, before it started shipping out to stores and whatnot, he got copies of it. He sent me a photograph in the foreword where he was thanking me for my help, and I was looking at that and I started freaking out because there's all these darn spaces between after the period.
You got to tell him. You got to back up here. See, Jim has got this very, very weird fetish that if there's more than one space after a period, he actually can see anything more than one space, and it irritates him to the point that he cannot read a document. He actually took hours at one time. I sent him a document that I double-spaced everything after a period. He could not read it. He went through the whole document and fixed the spacing before he can read the document. So I went to the publisher, and I said, listen, I got to do this. You have to, please beg. I'm begging you to do this for me. In my forward where I thank Jim, I want the paragraph to Jim to be double-spaced, and then after periods 3 spaces, and then after another sentence 4 spaces. And they're like, we can't do that. I mean, that's like telling the computer to do errors on the printing. I'm like, I know, but just tell me what it will take to do it. I social engineered the publisher into doing it. It was great. They came through, they did it, and if you look on the acknowledgments and you see the paragraph to Jim, it looks like one big error. He gets the book, and he's like, I can't even read the book because of that, because he can't fix it. There's no editing.
Not only that, I looked at it, and I thought for sure that there was a misprint. I thought they were going to have to pulp some books and send these back, and it was like, how the hell did that, Wiley of a serious publisher actually let that slip through? That's a huge typo.
Oh, it's great if you look at it. I'm just looking at it now. It's awesome. You can just open that page and you can see the massive spaces in between each sentence. He goes, I don't even read the thank you. I can't, because I can't understand the words because of the spacing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jim. I forgot about that, and that was a good story.
And so this is a good segue to just let everybody know. It's 1 space after a period, not 2. It doesn't matter what your typing teacher taught you. They were wrong. If you look it up, the Chicago Manual of Style, AP Style Guide, it's 1 space.
Yeah, but we're from New York. We're not from Chicago. In New York, we put 2 spaces, okay? Chicago, they make their pizza like 3 feet thick. That's not pizza. That's dough with sauce on it. Sorry, anyone who's listening in Chicago, but I'm serious. Pizza's the way it's made in New York. That's pizza. Italians didn't immigrate from Italy to Chicago. They immigrated from Italy to New York.
It has nothing to do with the number of spaces after a period. It's 1.
It does. New Yorkers are right. Chicago's wrong. There's 2 spaces after a period.
I'll confess something here. I actually keep a copy of the Chicago Manual of Style on my phone.
He does. He does.
So that way, when I get in this argument with people, I can prove them right.
He does. It's pretty pathetic.
And do you spell anal retentive with a hyphen?
He does. He spells anal retentive J-I-M-O Gorman. Oh.
We should probably wrap up. I think we've taken a lot of time from.
Yeah, guys, you've really hung in there for much longer than we told you we would keep you.
No problem.
Very worthwhile.
Yeah, thank you all. And Allison, you for telling us that you're a terrible rough around the edges person. You were very pleasant.
I'm on my best behavior. You have no idea.
Well, we greatly appreciate it. And you got to come to DerbyCon.
Well, I might actually make it to ShmooCon. I was supposed to be in San Fran for some business stuff, and that has been pushed. And so I might actually be at ShmooCon for my birthday. So
we'll be hanging out down there.
Excellent. Cool.
And Morgan already said that if we have a CTF this year, she's joining again. So I'm holding you to that, Morgan.
I just got to make it to Vegas. That's the only thing. But if I do, I'll do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree. Making it to Vegas is probably one of the biggest things when it comes to that.
I already got my roommate lined up for DEF CON, so I will definitely see you there, if nowhere else.
Awesome. Hey, again, thank you guys. This was really, really awesome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Appreciate all the feedback. We will talk to all of you, Gene, or John. I keep calling you Gene because I read your name and it just looks like Gene to me.
It's all right.
And Ron, thank you.
Anytime.
And we will talk to all of you guys later on, and I'm sure in the channel too. So keep in touch, please.
Oh, definitely.
All righty.
Thank you.
Everyone
Bye, guys.
Take care. Have a great night.
You too.
You
Bye.
too.
Good luck, Chris.
So I thought it was a good group. I thought they had good questions, good commentary.
Great question. You know, I didn't expect. I shouldn't say it. I mean, I did expect some positive feedback, but I mean, it was nice to hear everything that they did say. You know, kind of like you and me when we talked about the book even being written. The goal really was to do exactly what these people said that it did. You know, make a statement in the industry for social engineering. Be a book that doesn't exist today. Something that compiles all this research into one location. You know, this was the goal of the framework from day one, 17, 18 months ago. And to hear people say that is like, holy mackerel, we accomplished it. You know, we did it. Now we just got to keep doing it. So that's kind of cool. I was excited. Good job on emceeing, Jim.
Yeah. You know, there wasn't a lot to do. It was a good conversation. It just flowed on its own.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess in the outro, we'll make it nice and quick. If you like the music that you hear there, you can go to dualcoremusic.com. You can listen to that. If you want to keep in touch with us, we're on Twitter at Human Hacker. IRC.
Hold on, don't go yet.
Huh?
Don't go yet. We got to come up with a poll for next month.
Oh, man, here I am finishing up, and we haven't even done a poll.
We got to throw the poll out there. Here's my thought. Based on the conversation that we had here, I think what we should do is have something about what people are doing to protect themselves against social engineering attacks.
Now, how is that a poll? You need to give them choices, I think.
Yeah, I like different sorts of polls. I just like to ask questions, and then we'll see if anyone converges on the same answer. Now, what we can do is throw out like 3 or 4 different things, categories, instead of exact specifics. We can have, you know, is it training? Is it awareness? That might be the same thing to a lot of people.
But training,
you know.
scripts?
Yeah.
Training, and then the second be scripts.
Technical controls. Be interesting to see how many people select that.
Technical controls, and then other. And then other they can put in. And we can also make a box and type in what they're doing. I like that. Okay, so this month's poll, thanks for Jim reminding us, is what are you doing to protect against social engineering? And that can be either personal or in your organization. And we'll compile that. That will be available on Monday when the podcast goes live. And we'll have the poll up there from the previous poll on the statistics for that. Excellent. Thanks, Jim, for remembering on that. So I guess that now can I conclude?
Real quick, I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw a joke. I'm going to throw it out there since Dave's not here. Why did the elephant kill itself?
The what?
Why did the elephant kill itself?
I don't know.
It was trying to forget.
Really? This is the ending to the podcast. Really?
That's the ending of the podcast because Dave's not here. I'm trying to uphold his standards.
Wow. Okay. IRC.freenote.net on channel social-engineer. Of course, on the web, www.social-engineer.org. Twitter, we're Human Hacker. Thanks, guys, and really ponder that elephant thing. It's probably a conundrum, and we'll talk to you next month. Oh, and by the way, really, final thing. We're going to be at Shmoo, so we're going to get together. We're going to do a live podcast down there. So we'll get together with the group down there. We'll see you at Shmoo. Bye.
Later.
I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you.
It's the SE derivative. That's me, I'm prime. The last thing I want is suspicion of a crime. My positive demeanor and my smile make it fine. With eye contact for the right amount of time. Too much and not enough doesn't seem for real. Got a nice firm handshake sealing the deal. Know a little about a lot and a lot about a little. So most conversations put me somewhere in the middle. My pop culture knowledge leaves me feeling kinda scary. It lets me chat with working class and gossip secretaries. Recon the boardroom, looking for the top thing. Loosen up execs when I ask about the golf swing. Start spewing secrets, just like a torrent. Can't really blame them, we all wanna feel important. It might seem different from what you were envisioning. The key to communicate, it's all about the listening.
I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you hooked. I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you. I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you hooked. I'm
claiming I'm a tech. He's just here to help. So they're easily believing him, jamming, planning, scamming, spanning every single medium. Recording while I'm spidering your phone menu system. The mirror it and use it for my own acquisition. Get him on the line, I just do a little switching. Sending out my number in the message when I'm fishing. 6 billion people, it's really quite a market. Customers, employees, everyone's a target. Backing up my claims, using all the common slang. Lingo for the layout, drop the manager's name. Collecting all the sweet stuff like honey to a bumblebee. Like every unlisted number dialed to your company. You saw me, you probably think I'm clumsy, but I'm not. Cause I'm dropping all these USB drives around the parking lot.
Whoops. I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you hooked. I'm gonna use every trick in the book. I'll try my best to get you